So I'd like to talk to you about this exciting new research solution in cost estimation called QUELCE, which is Quantifying Uncertainty for Early Lifecycle Cost Estimation. And that project began back in 2012 after we saw data that showed that cost estimation continued to be the dominant reason for DoD program cost overruns. Additionally, in 2012, the WSERA Reform Act required cost estimation to be conducted prior to milestone A in the acquisition lifecycle, very early in life cycle before a program is even initiated and assembled. And the information that early in the life cycle is not amenable to use by the existing cost estimation machinery. So we saw two immediate technical challenges, i.e. we didn't have information mapping to the inputs of the existing cost estimation tools. And second of all, the lack of transparency on the existing information about uncertainty was even magnified as an issue. So our solution consists of 5 steps that I'm going to go through in which we're going to take information from a scenario planning workshop where experts discuss the anticipated sources of uncertainty in future program execution, and they're going to then assign probabilities to those sources of uncertainty occurring, and then they'll talk about scenarios in which those sources of change will interact with each other and cause possibly a cascading effect. And we model that with a dependency structure matrix in the workshop where we can now look at scenarios of cascading effects of these sources of uncertainty coming to fruition. Once we have that matrix completed, we can then take that information and build a Bayesian belief probabilistic network model, and from that we can then evaluate scenarios one at a time. Each scenario, once it is evaluated, we can then connect to the inputs of existing cost estimation tools and then have an outcome for cost estimation as a distribution instead of a single number. So we believe this new solution is much more robust of handling the kind of information that's available so early in the life cycle. We've also found, subsequent to our research, that there's a need to use this type of approach throughout the acquisition life cycle. And so we've continued the research this year in talking to Air Force sustainment centers about what are the sources of change related to projects that are doing sustainment and modernization. And we've added to the list the taxonomy of change drivers for these sources of information. And so we believe this now represents a mechanism for continuous cost estimation and updating throughout the acquisition lifecycle. As you'll notice, the QUELCE cost estimation method does depend heavily on expert judgment assessing probabilities of occurrence of different change drivers and sources of uncertainty. And so we have pursued research into individual and group level expert judgment, and we have codified training and testing to determine if experts are calibrated in their judgment before they participate in the QUELCE workshop. We have found that people can be off in their judgment 2 ways. One is they can be overconfident in their answer, and they can also be over-optimistic in their answer. And so our training is intended to address both of those issues and take a lot of research that's been done by others and help people guard against those fallacies in judgment. The QUELCE method also depends heavily on a repository of historical program information, experiences of change drivers occurring and not occurring, and the outcomes that they had on schedule and cost. And we are continuing to mine DoD program artifacts for information about the occurrence of these change drivers, and we are proceeding with natural language processing and machine learning to have a mechanism that would automatically process a DoD program artifacts going forward and keep a living profile of how often these change drivers occur on different programs by attribute. The QUELCE method also involves a paradigm shift in how cost estimation is pursued. It is no longer a cost analyst going in a corner and working up an estimate on their own. We need to assemble a large array of experts from different perspectives in a scenario planning workshop, and the cost analysts are excellent at facilitating such a workshop. And indeed, we're going to gather all that expert information to develop the scenarios that will be modeled by the QUELCE solution. The QUELCE method has also been shown to offer a lot of benefits outside of the cost estimation world. We are now seeing connections between this method and an evolving method called security engineering risk analysis, and others have said that this would actually supplement existing risk management programs. This year, QUELCE is in a transition from full research into deployment, and as such, it will be offered as a service by the SEI for several years. We will be developing a user community, and eventually QUELCE will be packaged as a product.